let's move on to green alternatives. Chris, what can we do so we don't leave Indian Point?
Well, I'll try and be really brief because I think we've probably got enough students here now and people generally to split up into workshop groups so that we can have a wider conversation.
Why don't we keep going? We'll have
Anyway,
a chance to get some people to do that.
so I would just say that I was going to speak on four different things. One is the alternatives, not just to nuclear power but also fossil fuels in general. Also the economics of nuclear power, and what else?
Chris, can you speak louder?
Can I speak louder?
Yeah.
Sure. So the economics of nuclear power, why nuclear power is not a solution to climate change, because that is a growing argument among some environmentalists. Also, and generally why there are real alternatives to nuclear power. So just to follow on from stuff that Gary was saying and also Alice, I'm very much of the opinion that this is completely a political and a social question. It's not really a technical problem at all. We definitely know how to provide alternatives. In fact, we don't even need the power that comes from Indian Point. And so to echo something that Alice was saying, you can't really understand why politicians are so into maintaining nuclear power stations and even building more, particularly in light of the situation in Fukushima and that disaster, following on the heels of Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and many others of a smaller scale that don't get reported. You can't understand that situation unless you connect it to the power of the nuclear lobby, but even more so the nuclear weapons of this country and other countries with nuclear power. And I don't think it's coincidental that the countries that have now said that they're closing down their nuclear power programs, which all came out of mass demonstrations, like Germany, like Switzerland, like Italy, are now foregoing nuclear power. And Germany is the 4th largest economy on the world, and if they think they can they currently have more nuclear power stations as a percentage of their power, 35%, than is true in this country, which is about 18%. If they think they can do it, then there's no reason why the United States couldn't do it, because the United States has way more money. So it's much more a question of, like going to the NRC meeting and having 600 people there, that has kind of an impact. And I think because of Occupy Wall Street, we're in a totally new political period where so much more is possible. And we just had some amazing news in the last couple of days, or last week or so, where we managed to get the XL pipeline construction stopped, right, for at least a year. Very, very exciting. Fantastically exciting. And also, they just cancelled the meeting, the fracking meeting that was due for.
We're going there tomorrow if anyone wants to.
Yeah. So all the buses to the fracking meeting from New York City, which is where I am, are still going, because now I think it could be more like a victory rally and a show of strength than a protest. But it's very significant because they've never cancelled one of these meetings before. They thought they had the 3 of 5 votes that they needed, and it turns out they don't, because like the governor of Delaware changed his vote, for example, and now they're down to 2 out of 5, and and Cuomo too, and so
the second one?
Pennsylvania and Christie.
They're for it.
They're for it in New Jersey. Which is kind of outrageous because there's no fracking going on in New Jersey. So in any case, both huge victories, and I don't think you can understand those victories except in the context of Occupy Wall Street, Egypt, us, the people, right, the 99%. And so it's totally changed the conversation that people are having. So however many decades some people have been fighting Indian Point, like now, it could actually, we could close it down, right? We have a real window of opportunity in the next 2 years to say you are not going to relicense this. And that would be phenomenal, not just for the reactor community here, but it would have huge repercussions nationally. Like in Vermont, where they're trying to relicense the Vermont Yankee, even though their cooling tower collapsed in 2007. And all across the country where they're trying to relicense plants. So, there's not a single nuclear power plant or nuclear reactor being built anywhere in the world with private money. Why is that? Why will they not fund these things? George W. Bush promised $18 billion to the nuclear industry to say, go and build some. That wasn't enough. President Obama doubled that and said, here's another $36 billion, take this money and go build some. And the nuclear industry said, no, that's not enough. We need 100 billion before we even think about building some more. Down on Wall Street, and we all know they take every single risky bet going, they will not finance nuclear power stations. They're too risky, they're too uneconomic. So how do we understand why the Obama administration, the government here, is still wanting to build new nuclear power plants and realize these old ones, like this one's already 40 years old almost. Do we really want to be living in a community another 20 years from now with a nuclear plant that's 60 years old, built in the 1970s? I mean, it's absolute madness. Apart from the fact that one of the reasons that New York State has the highest amount of electricity costs of any of the states in the country is because of the nuclear power question and how uneconomic they are. So closing this down is a real possibility.
Yes.
And you know, as Joseph Romm, who was previously in a number of, was in the government in the 1980s, he's now a climate change blogger, well known, got some great books, said, you know, getting the XL pipeline closed down raises the question, well, what else can we do? Where else can we go? What other victories are now possible? So I think that is really the key question. So I did bring some books if people want to check out. This is a really great history of the inception of the nuclear power and the connection to nuclear weapons from Stephanie Cook. She was a nuclear journalist for pro-nuclear, and then has written a book, a cautionary tale of it. It's really good. There's Helen Caldicott's book, Nuclear Power is Not the Answer. You can check out these books. And then this is a pretty interesting history of the development of uranium as a source of power and the very sordid and extremely racist history of this element and where it comes from. Because, you know, as much as they talk about clean energy from nuclear power, for example, well, where does France get its uranium from? There are no uranium deposits in France. They get it from its ex-colony, Niger, in Africa. And Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world. It's 167 out of 169 on the Human Rights Development Index. There's only one decent road in the whole country. That's the one that takes the uranium out to France. And so, you know, there's a really horrible history to this. And in this country, obviously, a lot of the uranium mining was done on Native American land. And they're now poisoned and fighting that down in New Mexico and other places. I also brought copies of my book, Ecology and Socialism, Solutions to Capitalist Ecological Crisis, if anybody's interested. But I guess, you know, thinking about what we can do, I think as people who want to get involved and do stuff, I think that there are many, many more opportunities, not just around the nuclear issue, but how can we make sure that we're building a climate justice and a movement for jobs, because everybody needs jobs, that we can move forward with. So, yeah, I'll finish that.
Thank you.